What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at these Nike pants that I created in CLO3D. If you don't want to follow this tutorial and kind of just want to get the pattern and edit it yourself from there, it is available on my store for $2. Comes with a Blender file, CLO3D or Marvelous file, everything you need to do, and also some texture files. So if you want to check that out, head over to my Shopify store. Appreciate the support. But for those who want to follow along and create it yourself and don't have that $2, make sure to stick around for the entire video. I'll take you through the whole process, and it's quite a simple garment to make, and it can look really cool if done correctly. If you are new here, don't forget to hit the like, comment, and sub button, and I hope you guys enjoy. So I've just got my preview on the side here. The first thing we're going to be doing is creating a rectangle. We're going to create it like a similar size to the waist. I can just drop it, drag it. We're going to use copy, paste to make a duplicate of it. We're then going to place this in the 3D space. Make sure it's pretty close to the body. And then we're going to press N to sew the sides together. Once it's done, we can press simulate and you should get something like this. I'm just going to adjust it on the body, and we're going to go down to our property editor and adjust the shrinkage weft to about 75. This is good. This is just going to make it a little bit more elasticy. You won't really see the effect now, but it does make it stick down quite a bit more. The next thing I'm going to do is head over to the polygon tool and start creating the shape of our leg. Once you are happy with the basic shape, you can Control C to copy, and then we're going to mirror paste. From there, we're going to go into the 3D window and adjust it slightly before clicking on both of these. Right clicking, and it says symmetric pattern. This is going to be the back side. We can then just adjust in the 3D space and then press N to sew the sides together. We're then going to sew center pieces and then begin to sew the waist to the pants. So for this, we're going to press M to use the free sewing tool, drag it across, and then press Shift to now select two sections, and you'll see that it separates them both. We're going to do the same for the back, Shift, and we are done. So far we're looking good, and hit simulate. If it does do this, we can always go back by saying Control C and just Control V and just making sure that everything is good. To avoid this, we're just going to move these back pieces a little bit closer to our avatar and the front pieces towards the avatar, and hit simulate again. And just like that. Now it kind of looks like some sport pants. So we're just going to add a little bit more fabric to this. To do this, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to select the pattern of the legs and press Shift and expand. And then I'm just going to drag it up a bit and continue adjusting so that we have a little bit more material to work with. Looks like we're getting there. Let's continue to do this just to create some more width. And now I'm going to go into the pattern itself and just extend the sides like so. Because it's symmetric, it will adjust both at the same time, which is great. And then I'm going to shift this over like so. And we're now going to shift the centerpiece together. And hit simulate. That's looking good. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is just add a little bit more weft to the top piece here. You can see it's kind of falling now, so let's select that and make it about 65. And you'll see it'll just tighten a little bit. You can see that the front is white and the back is black. That's because our normals aren't flipped yet, but we'll just wait till the end. If you can't see that, it's because you are on the textured thick mode. As you can see, the texture becomes thicker and you can't see those flip normals. So if you want to see those, just go over to your texture and adjust it, and you should be able to see your normals. Right now we're on particle distance of 20, and this basically increases the amount of polygons you have. So to make it fall a little bit better, we're just going to set it at 15, and you'll see when you simulate, you'll get a little bit more detail. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is work on the waistbands. So for this, we're going to press B, and we're going to click on one of our sewing pieces, right click and say merge. Because our normals on flipped yet, you'll see that your sewing has actually been inverted. So we're going to Control Z and undo that. So to fix this, we are going to remove the symmetric linking because we're happy with that. So remove linking, and then we're going to click on these 3 patterns, right click and say flip normal. Now we can go back and press B, right click and say merge, and now this is going to create one long elastic. Our next step in the phase is to copy this waistband so we can get a little bit of, we can get this more realistic waistband look. So let's copy and paste that in. We can hide this history tab and this library tab because we're not going to be working that, just so we can get some more screen space. And we are going to click on the bottom of both these lines, right click and say internal line, and set it to about 15, let's say 10, and times that by 4, and maybe set it to 11, 10.5. And set it to 3. Cool, happy with that. We can then bring this down and make this a little bit bigger. This is going to create that look we're going for. We're then going to press N to sew the bottom of each section together, and we're just going to carry on this process. Because I kind of want this top line and this bottom line, we're going to skip the middle line. So let's select bottom line and the top line, and from there we can click in the 3D window, right click and say superimpose over, and you'll see it will match it up nicely. Then in order for the simulation to work correctly, we're going to select both of these and set the particle distance to about 5 for now. Let's see how that looks. And hit simulate. There we go, we're starting to get that similar look that we were going for. We can adjust it a bit later, but the next thing we're going to do is the bottom of our pants. So let's select the bottom line. We're going to right click and say offset pattern outline. Let's set this to about 15. Let's say 20 actually, that seems like a good number. And we're going to say create internal line and hit done. From there we're going to go to the 3D window, and we're going to use the fold arrangement tool, and we're going to click on each line and fold it in. This is going to be the seams at the bottom. This is going to be used for the bottom of our pants, just to create that realistic fold look, and then we're going to add some sewing on now. So let's fold that, looking good. And then we're going to press Z on a keyboard on each of these lines and say offset internal line, and we're going to set the number of offsets to 1, and this is going to be set to 20. Okay, now that we've set that up and we've folded our lines here, we're going to press N, and we're going to sew these together like so. This is just going to fold the seam together, and let's hit simulate. And just like that, we have a realistic looking seam at the bottom of our pants. We can then press N to sew these bits together. In the 3D window, we're going to press N and we're going to sew these together. Let's press Shift A to hide it, and let's do that same thing on both sides here. Hit simulate. You can see that the pattern has actually reversed the sewing, which is causing it to crease. So we can stop the simulation, zoom in here, press B, and just on these points, we're going to right click and say reverse sewing. Same thing for here, reverse sewing, and hit simulate, and it should be fixed. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is work on the pockets. So we can see it's just a straight line down. So for this, I'm not actually going to create the internal section too much. I'll just do a basic example for you, but let's get our orientation. So this is going to be the front, which is this pattern here. We're going to use the internal rectangle tool to create a rectangle on both sides of the garment. So that's our first section. And we're going to copy and paste it over to our second section. If you want to make it perfect, you obviously can just make sure that your measurements are correct. I'm just going to use my eye. We're going to click on both of these, say clone this pattern and paste. I'm just going to drag it up to here so we do know that it is for each side. We're going to use N to sew these on, just like so. Then we're going to click on both of these clone patterns, right click in the 3D window and say superimpose over, and hit simulate. You'll now see that we've kind of got like this little fake pocket going there. Okay, the next thing, we've got a little bit of a back pocket here, so let's go to the back side of our pants. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to use the internal rectangle tool to create this. You can easily just drag and drop to create the base shape. You can see it's almost up against the seam here, but I'm not going to make it like that. I'm going to center it a little bit better and bring it up a little bit to make it more of a box shape. We can right click and say clone this pattern, and I'm just going to paste this right here, and then you can use N to sew this on. Go to your 3D window, right click and say superimpose over. The next thing we're going to do is just create a double fold at the top here. So using the edit pattern tool, we can right click and say offset internal line. We're going to say option is not reverse direction and set it to about 20 millimeters. Right click and say enter. We can cut and sew this now and layer clone over. And then when we simulate, should get a little pocket looking like this. The next thing we're going to do is work on the drawstring. So for this section, we're going to go back up to our waistbands. We're going to be working with the top section. We know that this is the front area, so we're going to kind of just eyeball it and guess that this is the middle. We can actually delete this internal line on both of them. Let's see if it makes it. Nope. Cool. Looks great. And let's use the internal ellipse tool, or R, to create our circle. So we can see it's already starting to form something. We're going to just bring it a little bit closer. If we look in the 3D window, copy and paste. Cool. From there we can right click on both of them and say convert to whole. You'll see now that there is a hole. To ensure that our strings do stay attached inside, what we can do is go to our bottom piece of our waistbands and create some internal lines for our lace. So we can use the internal rectangle tool and just draw this over like this. See that there is something showing there. Just to see it better, we can right click in the 3D window and say hide, and just like that you can see we have something there. Pressing A, we can adjust it and bring it across, maybe even bring it closer together. And then we can right click on the top waistband and say show, and just like that we now have something to sew our laces to. I'm going to use the rectangle tool and set the width to 10 millimeters, and we're going to start with a small one, so let's do 40 millimeters in height. Using the Z or edit pattern, we're going to click on the sides and say offset internal. We're going to set this to 4.5 millimeters, which is going to leave a millimeter in the middle. And we can click on both of these and say cut and sew. And it does seem pretty weird now, but this is how it's going to work. On the right here, we can copy this fabric and name it I don't know how to spell that. And head down to our property editor and set the set the opacity to 0 and click on both these and hit apply. You'll see now in the 3D window that this entire shape here is looking a little bit odd, but you'll see why now. This is kind of just going to keep everything together really nicely and create that thick lace. In the property panels, we can go down to the thickness renderer and set this to 1. And then we can go up to thick textures and hit bam, just like that. We have a nice thick texture. So from here we can sew the top of this to our internal waistband by using M or the free sewing tool. I'm going to go like that, shift and drag this across. And then press A, and in the 3D window we can say superimpose over, and once again let's hide the front waist and let's hit simulate. So you can see we've got like a little lace here, and when we reveal, see that it's now sticking out and in the right spot. So to help with the rendering, we're going to set this whole section. We're going to select this pattern and hit the set the particle distance to 3. It will slow down simulation, but it's good. We need that. Cool, looking good. And then from there we can just select this by pressing A and drag it out. We can make it even thicker by clicking on the middle pattern and setting it to 2 millimeters. You'll see in the 3D window space it starts to get a bit bigger. I'm even going to set it up to 3. I think 3 is a sweet spot. Yeah, looks good. Right click and say copy and mirror paste, and like that we now have the second lace. In the 3D window space we can hide the top waistband, select our pattern again and just drag it over, and we're now going to sew this to the other side. So exact same thing we did using the free sewing tool. We're going to complete the top of this lace, and then we're going to simulate, and you should get something like this. If it does look a little bit weird, just make sure to fiddle around and you should get the results you need, because the particle distance is pretty small. I'm not going to tie it because that is quite a technical process to do. I'm just going to leave it down. I might do another video explaining exactly how to do that specifically. From here we're now going to do the top stitching. So I'm just going to head up to the top stitching panel and rename it, as we might have multiple different top stitchings. And then we can then go ahead and just start putting in those extra details. We're going to adjust this top stitch a little bit by creating some space. So let's go down to the spacing and we're going to set it to 1 millimeter. And this is going to make it look a little bit better. And we're going to carry on placing it around the garment. We are now going to create an internal line and set the direction to reverse with a 5 millimeter distance. And this is going to allow us to place the top stitching directly on the line as opposed to off it. To get better results, you need to set your offset to 0, which is what we've done. And now we can get that precise accuracy around our pockets. Once we have done that, we can now set our particle distance of our pants. This is just going to create a better rendering result, and we can hit simulate. As you can see, it looks a lot better already. We're now going to go into our UV editor and prep this garment for export. To do this, we can right click, reset UV to 2D arrangement. We can start to select each pattern and reposition it in the UV editor. When exporting in thick, I normally like to leave a little bit of space between the garments just so that when you are editing them on later on, it's easier to place patterns and logos, etc. on. We can then select all and scale it down to fit into the first square. Now some people like to place it in multiple squares depending on the pattern, but I normally like to just go with one because it's less of a workflow later on. It's easier to Photoshop a higher res document than multiple low res documents, and also you get a better result. Try to position everything pretty equally in the square, and obviously try and make them as big as possible. That's normally your best results. So just try to squeeze everything in as much as you can. Once it is done, we can go up to export, choose your location. For the export settings, we must make sure to deselect all avatars, make sure it's on thick, single object, pixels around 8000, and we can click export. Then when we go into your shorts folder that you exported everything, you'll see you now have your diffuse file, which is your pattern, which you can then edit in Photoshop or any other editing software you have. If you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to drop a like, comment, and sub. If you're new here, don't forget to turn the notification bell on. Thank you so much for the support. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.